Good afternoon. I'd like to talk to you about an idea, the idea of concision, and why it might save your life. Now, concision, and by that I don't mean a painful medical procedure, concision is using just the right words to get your message across. So, simplicity over complexity, short words over long ones, fewer words, more straightforward words, rather than long paragraphs of verbose, vague verbiage. Concision means knowing your audience, and it means knowing what you want to say. And of course, I care about it. I'm a writer. My job is actually taking texts that are difficult to understand and making them shorter and clearer and making them reach their audience. But you should care too, and I want to show you why. The fact is, we've never been more literate as a country. 99% of us are literate, and it's not just the well-educated who are writing. We're all writing now. Blogs, emails, Facebook comments. You need to know how to write in today's world, to stay in touch, to collaborate professionally, or even just access new technology. Writing is essential, and the flip side of that is that bad writing has far-reaching consequences. Well, I think we can all roll our eyes at some examples of bad writing. I don't know if you've ever come across something like this, for example. Aren't working, I'm afraid. Just take a moment to read it. I won't ask you to understand it. I can see, yes, you have come across exactly this sort of thing. Or maybe you've come across this sort of ambiguity, the stuff of comedy. Now, I don't really keep up with gossip, but I think I would have heard something. Well, bad writing is everywhere if you look for it. You'll find it in novels, in newspaper articles, of course, in emails and text messages. And what I mean by bad writing, I think really of three different areas. I think you can't understand. So the best case scenario is you don't know what it means. The worst case scenario is you think it means something else. So pity the American taxpayer who's trying to make head nor tails of this. For purposes of paragraph 3, an organization described in paragraph 2 should be deemed to include an organization described in section 501c4, 5, or 6, which would be described in paragraph 2 if it were an organization described in section 501c3. Believe it or not, many accountants don't actually know what that means. Or take wordy writing, because writing doesn't have to be confusing to be bad. So, for example, take this political speech. Long, complicated, full of lots of words, but what it's actually saying is, I think it makes sense to tell you what I've been up to in Parliament recently. In times like these, an MP should discuss things with his constituents. And you might have to take my word for that. But it's not just confusing. It's not just words. So just have the wrong tone. So take the example of the employee who worked incredibly hard preparing a report. She sent it off to her boss, only to receive this one-word email in response. Like me, she thought, he was furious. In fact, he was thrilled. But you wouldn't know that from that word. Well, the problem is any of these different kinds of bad writing can have consequences far beyond what you might think. So take corporations, companies, as an example. They're a good test case because writing is essential for company work. Print out every piece of writing used in the corporate world, and you wouldn't need file folders, you would need warehouses full to fit every email correspondence back and forth to the client, from the client, among the staff team, employee handbooks, letters to potential customers, marketing materials, website information, training. You would need a lot of storage space. And if there are mistakes, they multiply in their effects right the way throughout the company. So one study of 400 large companies estimated that the average annual cost across the US and the UK for employee misunderstanding was 26 billion pounds. Millions of pounds per company. A different study looking at small companies looked specifically at knowledge workers, people whose job is not to produce widgets but to deal with information, people like management, people like writers, and found that per year the cost associated with communication that was unwanted or too verbose was £8,000 per person. In fact, improving the communication style of just one person at an organization, the CEO, is statistically linked to 47% higher returns to shareholders. And if that doesn't move you, then you're not a shareholder. The fact is, and it makes sense, if people are turning out confusing writing, that means you have to ring them up or send a chain of clarifying emails back and forth, that costs a company. And that's the best case scenario. What if you don't spot it and you produce work to the wrong deadline or work that misses the client's expectations? The cost is enormous. And the consequences are even graver when you turn to the medical field. So there's a significant body of research looking at something called inadvertent patient harm. That's what happens to you other than the initial illness or accident that brings you into a care setting. That happens to you as the system or the care workers you encounter, stuff that shouldn't happen but does. And we're talking about serious things as well. 75% of people who suffer inadvertent medical harm, they go on to die. 70% of inadvertent patient harm is due to communication problems. Now, if you're anything like me, you think communication problems, that I can easily imagine what that is. Maybe the wrong information was passed, the wrong prescription. Or maybe they just didn't mention that someone was ill. Maybe that's what it is. In fact, one study found that the foremost cause of that 70% was communication style mismatch. And let me go into that. Particularly the problem is between doctors and nurses. Nurses were trained not to give diagnoses, but instead to give long narrative descriptions of what was wrong. So you imagine how it might be. A patient is getting worse. The nurse picks up the phone to the doctor, and she begins telling him the story. The doctor responds. She's just looking out for the headline. She just wants to know what the situation is, what needs to be done. And so this mismatch between communication style, the fact that nurses are routinely giving far too much information, using far too many words that aren't clear and concise enough, was meaning that doctors weren't able to which patients need care. So the patients who would desperately need the doctor. The report recommended following a four-question framework. I was told that the slide hasn't changed for a bit. This is the first question of the four-question framework. What's going on with the patient? What's the situation at the moment? What's the background? What's gone wrong to put the patient in this situation? What is my assessment as a healthcare provider of what's going wrong, and what would I recommend to fix the problem? There are 4 simple questions, but you see what's being addressed here. The problem is that there are too many words, there's too much information, and there are no headlines. And what actually you need to do is condense that communication down, make it concise, have it deal with just the relevant information, and you save 30 to 70,000 people's lives a year in America. Well, the principle that too much information drowns out what you're trying to communicate, that's true not just in the medical sphere, even if the consequences are far worse there. It's true anywhere. So when I started up my writing company, I had us do some research. We identified a list of local Durham companies, so companies in the Durham area anyway, and we went to their websites and looked at the content, not the web design, just the content. We found plenty of content that was meeting the needs of their target audience, and we ignored that. We zeroed in just on the website content that was completely mismatched to the audience. Some looked like it had been written by a 6-year-old child, and I'm being polite. One sentence featured 3 different spellings of the same word, which I feel was particularly creative. Some writing was so opaque that I couldn't understand it, and I'm a professional writer. We picked the worst of the lot, and then we rang them up, and we had a proposal for them. The proposal was, we will completely rewrite your website content. We'll conduct a full audience analysis, find out exactly what your customers want to know, what questions they're asking, and we will answer that question, all of those questions on your website. We will make your website content just right, and we'll do it for free. With one exception, every company said no. And the reason was not that they didn't like me, but they thought their website content was great. That may be difficult to believe. Maybe you believe it. I can't believe it because I saw it. It was awful. And yet that's exactly what we do as people. Apparently, human beings are particularly bad when it comes to overestimating our skill at something. So when it comes to writing, for example, 2 psychologists called Dunning and Kruger came up with a principle that has imaginatively been called the Dunning-Kruger principle, identified that the worst people at a given skill will vastly overestimate their ability. So the worst writers amongst us will probably think they're pretty decent, as will the good writers amongst us. But it means that our own assessment of our writing is not to be trusted. And the consequences are pretty awful. So imagine you have a website, and you want to reach your target market. Well, they'll come to your website, they'll have questions. They need to be persuaded. If they're persuaded, they'll pick up the phone or they'll press that order button or they will otherwise engage your services. And if you don't answer those questions, they won't. They'll close the tab and they'll switch to number 2 result in search engine of your choice. So if you're not answering those questions, if you have to navigate through a complicated series of menus, or if the person can find the page, but somewhere in all of this text there's the answer, well, they're not going to choose your company. You'll lose sales. If you're looking for a job and the interviewer has to comb through pages and pages of extraneous information, you won't land the job. It has real consequences, quite apart from the figures of loss for companies or the tragic figures of deaths in the medical system. And in fact, it goes beyond just pounds and pence. You can lose relationships as well. And the reason is that 2 psychological principles work together. So the first is that 56% of people will misunderstand a given communication. They'll misunderstand its tone. 56%. If you send an email to 10 people, 5 or 6 of them are going to be wandering around afterwards talking about how mean you were, or something like that. Couple that to the second psychological principle, and that is when people do misunderstand something, they will not misunderstand it favorably. Almost invariably, people misunderstand something neutrally or negatively. So if you leave any ambiguity in something you say, the tone people pick up is, well, either that's a really confusing person, or that was really hurtful. I can't believe he just said that. And so you lose people. I don't know if you've ever had someone misunderstand a text or an email you sent. I certainly have. And that's exactly what we should expect. And all the more if we don't make a great effort to make sure we're speaking and communicating clearly. There's another reason why we're very bad at evaluating our own writing. It's not just because we're programmed to think we're above average. And actually, I want to do an experiment. So I'm going to need you to be really, really honest with me here. Are you prepared to be honest? I can't see your faces, so I can't tell. Okay, I'm going to tap out a tune, and I want you to guess, just from the rhythm, what tune it is. And I don't want you to tell anyone. I want you to keep it inside. Okay? You with me here? Excellent. Okay, here is the tune. Now, of course, you know what tune that is, I'm sure. I'm going to tell you what it was, and then if you've got it right, I want you to raise your hand. Okay, the tune was, you all have your answers, right? You're not changing your answers after I tell you. Okay, the tune was Happy Birthday. Who thought it was Happy Birthday? Raise your hand. I'm seeing one. One? Come on, shout out from the back. Did anyone else know it was Happy Birthday? Well, I'm afraid I have to tell you a little below average. Apparently about 2.5% of people can guess. The other problem is it could just be me, but apparently 2.5% of the people who hear a tune tapped out that's particularly well known, they can guess it. Now, there was a study that looked into this and discovered that it was, in fact, 2.5%, which is about 4 or 5 people in a room this size. But that wasn't really that interesting, to be honest. What was fascinating, though, is that the people tapping the tune thought the figure should be more like 50%. In other words, 75 people should be raising their hands to the roof right now saying, yes, I knew it was Happy Birthday. Right? You should all be doing that. In other words, the people tapping the tune thought it was much more likely people would get the right answer by about a factor of 20. And why? Because if you're tapping away, the rhythm inside your head is playing the melody. Right? I know what I'm trying to communicate. I know the tune. I could virtually sing it now. Although I realize that would have negative effects for all. And the same is true when it comes to our writing. You see how it might work with an email. So you type out a quick email to answer somebody's question, and then you do that thing that we were all told to do in English class, but which we never do, which is reread what we've just written and then revise it. And you're rereading, and you're looking through, and you think, yes, I've answered that question, and it's perfectly clear, and everything is absolutely crystal perfect, concise, send. The fact is, we actually already know what we want to say. We already know what's in our own heads. It's really difficult to put ourselves in the place of the person receiving that email. It's really difficult to imagine what life might be like, not knowing all of the wonderful things that are inside our heads. Which means it's very difficult sometimes to communicate. Even if you think you're being crystal clear, actually you might not be. I don't know if you're nodding along. I would be at this point. Yes, there is definitely a problem, Daniel, with writing. The problem is out there. But of course it isn't. The greatest enemy of good writing is this confidence that we feel within ourselves that we're actually pretty good writers. And science tells us why we think that. Even if we're rubbish, the Dunning-Kruger effect tells us we'll think we're pretty good. And the curse of knowledge, that's what this particular fact is known, that you can't forget something you know. Well, the curse of knowledge means we won't actually be very much able to put ourselves in the place of our audience. So how do we get better? I'll give you another example of the curse of knowledge before I give you the secret of the answer. One nuclear plant supervisor ordered 10-foot-long lengths of nuclear material in an incredibly costly and embarrassing mix-up that was subsequently, apparently, ruled classified by the US government. He received 10 individual foot-long lengths of nuclear material, when in fact he wanted 10-foot-long lengths. I'm sure in his own mind he thought he was being perfectly clear, but of course he couldn't forget what he knew. So the answer is simple. First, you need to clarify exactly what you want to say. And then you need to empathize with the audience you're trying to communicate to. So first, clarify. What is my message? What am I trying to say? How do I want to change the world with the words I'm sending out? What do I want the person who receives my email or my text or who reads my blog post, what do I want them to do? What is my message, after all? And then actually condense it down to one sentence, a summary sentence, if you will. And take that summary sentence, and when you reread what you write, measure everything by it. If there's a word that doesn't serve it, cut it out. Or if it, which is far more likely, if there's a sentence or a paragraph that doesn't actually help you with that summary sentence, delete it. Mark Twain, a famous American writer, once said, if there's anything you write that you're particularly attached to, cut it out. And that might sound cruel, but it's probably about right. And then second, empathize. Think, who are my audience? What questions will they have about what I've written? What do they need to know to do what I've asked them to do? What situations am I aware of that they are not? How do I make their life easier? Because the fact is that the people we're writing to are often just like us, overwhelmed with far too much information, and all too prone, if something is left ambiguous or vague, to misunderstand it. It feels like an easy win to send off that email quickly, to send off that report that's beautifully typeset, but a little vague in the ideas. Quickly, but actually we'll be saving ourselves and our audience time and money if we spend the effort rewriting it before we send it out. We underestimate the problems all the time. The figure of 26 billion pounds a year in cost to companies, of 18,000 pounds per knowledge worker. The figures, let's face it, of 30 to 70,000 people's lives lost as a result of communication failure. That should make us take note. We may all think the problem is with someone else and not me, but science tells us that's exactly what we would think. And the only way we can change the world for the better and eliminate vague and confusing writing is for every single one of us to make writing simply and clearly our priority.